Welcome to the This Train podcast, where we'll talk about all things in the making of This Train, the movie. Today's special guest is Ed Paul Fry, star and producer of the film. My name is Jack Lugar. I'm the writer and director of This Train, and I'll be your host. Let's talk about casting.
Yes.
All right. So,
who did you really want for the film, Jack? Who did you really want? No.
Well, you know, I did make a call to Brad Pitt.
Yeah. Well, he is my doppelganger.
Yes,
I understand that.
course.
So
he can't play the guitar like you can, so that was that ended up. No, you know, that was the thing. I think everything I write that's in this age range is. I think about myself playing it because I'm writing it, so I'm voicing it.
Yep.
I do write a lot of when I'm writing another script.
It's fair to say we are in our 50s.
Yes.
It is fair to say
Yes.
that now. So.
Yes, I'm a little bit ahead of you too. Sad to say, but yeah. I mean, so a lot of times, I pictured myself when I was writing it, in a sense, to begin with, right? Once I talked to you, then I started writing with you in mind.
Nice.
I will write other scripts with a known actor in mind. You know, that is more just so I can have voice.
Yeah.
Right. I can see them acting it, and that helps you picture. But I don't usually get into describing them too heavily because I'm not going to pigeonhole myself that way, nor do I expect them to do it.
Yeah.
Right. But it's a good way to get a voice in your head, I think. So casting you, I mean, I didn't do any readings with you or testing or anything. I just had faith that that was going to work out, and so
That work out? Was that okay?
I think it turned out pretty
good.
darn well.
That's good to know.
You know, in the editing room, one of the things about editing your own film is that the editor sees everything that goes wrong.
Yeah.
Right. You know, and so I'm sitting in there, and an actor doesn't do something I want them to do, or I am watching and go, oh crud, they just looked at the camera and they didn't see it on set, right? I can't use that shot. Okay, all those little things that you see, and you go, that actor or that sound guy or that cameraman, and then you go, that director, and then so everything I would go look at and go, it's my fault, right?
Yeah.
I mean, yes, I have everybody's eyes and ears, but ultimately it's me, right? And so that always helped diffuse any kind of frustration because when you make a film, there's so many people pulling their weight and doing things, and everybody's under that stress. And for our film, essentially working for free, right? I always had to go back to that. And then I always, after, you know, if you might got upset or something wasn't like I wanted, I just would say, solve the problem. Yeah. Right? And
that's the big thing I hear from you, and I still hear that because I say it to myself now. Yeah. Solve the problem.
Yeah, because that's all filmmaking is constantly there's a new problem, and you got to solve it, and you got to solve it in especially in this setting, a sane way, and get cooler heads prevail and so forth. Because if you're a Hollywood director and you can be a hothead and you're getting paid a lot of money, and people go, well, he's a hothead, and so. You know, and we're getting paid to put up with him. Fine, okay, right? That wasn't my case, so hopefully, you know, I always look back at. There's a picture that was taken on our last day of production, and you're sitting down and I'm squatted down. And we're talking about something, who knows what, but we're both smiling. Yeah. And I thought that was the last day of production. We're both smiling, and it seemed like we actually still liked each other.
We walk away friends. Yeah. Really good friends. You know.
I thought that's a good sign.
I love that picture.
But
even as an actor, I would say, because we take our cue from the director, you know, it's like, I don't know if I've given my best performance, or I don't know what I've done. I can't see what's happening there on the monitor. Right. I know if I haven't delivered something, we would come back and say, I'd like to do that one again. But it always comes down to, are you happy with that? Are you satisfied with that? Are you, you know, all the actor has to go on is what the director's saying.
Right.
And if you're happy, it got, you know, doesn't matter what I think at that point.
Right.
So, yeah.
Well, and you know, and with other actors, sometimes you're like, let's see if I can get this again. And we, you know, again, back to the independent aspect of it. And we're not working with people that do film acting all the time, right? So there were times where I'd go, I think that's the best we're going to be able to get on this. And so like anybody, you go into the editing room, you edit around something that you might need to. Sometimes, and we went back and shot a couple of things again that hopefully helped improve performances and the storytelling too. But yeah, that's the little miracle about the film in some senses, is that all things considered, shooting with many actors some have never done any film, commercial or short films or anything, got on screen and pulled the part out really well.
Amazingly so. You brought up, let's talk about casting, and let's talk about casting.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
First thoughts? You approached me with. We were talking about Ricky's, significant, his estranged wife. Estranged wife, and so what could that look at? I'm thinking through things, and I don't know, and I'm like, different people were popping in my head. This could be interesting. That could be really interesting. This person, or not.
And the character had to be the same age as you, because they were high school sweethearts,
exactly,
essentially. So it couldn't be. So it eliminated so many other possibilities potentially that were out there.
So you call me up and say, "Do you know Julia Barnett?" I said, "Well, I know Julie Barnett, but Julia, yeah." I said, "Yeah, actually, pretty well." So, and I know Julia's been doing a lot of great stuff, making her waves, and has her own production company and directing films and acting, and she's been in all of these TV shows and everything else. And you're like, "What do you think of her?" And I'm like, "Never thought of her, but why not? We're friends on Facebook.
Yeah,
I'll just reach out."
Right.
And
I wasn't brave enough to actually make the call, but you said you would.
I would, because I'm like, we went to college together, and we kind of we traveled together in a rock band that we had in college, and she was our backup singer for a short stint with the tour, and so I knew her pretty well. What I didn't know is that you knew her, and that was even more fun.
Yeah. So because I knew Julie, as we all called her back then. I knew Julie from high school. So I went to Heritage Christian here in Indianapolis, and she was a year behind me. And through high school, we were in the school plays together, but I didn't know she was that interested in acting, particularly at that time. But I knew I had talked to her a couple times over the years, and knew she was directing short films, and had been in New York and was in Austin, Texas, and I knew she went to AU.
Yeah.
While I was at a different school, so I knew where she was, and I was like, well, you guys may have overlapped, I think is why I kind of thought that. And I thought, again, I know she's done a lot of film acting, had seen her in a couple things, so I knew she could, handle herself on camera. So that's why I think as I kind of scoured other options. But the problem was, again, independent film, I have no money, essentially, and she lived in Austin, Texas.
Yeah.
Right? So I was like, I don't know how we're going to pull this off.
And she's a pro.
Yeah. Right, yes. Which may have other problems, but small enough film, maybe not. But so I think her name came up. We talked about it. Then we kind of said, let's see if we looked at other options. Right. Really, we're not coming up with anything. And I think you brought her name back up to me again in a phone conversation. I'm like, well, I guess let's see. And so you said, I'll send her the script. I'll reach out to her and send her the script.
Yeah, she said, she's like, "Oh yeah, I know Jack. I knew it would be great. It's so good to hear from you." So, and of course, like anybody else, she said, "Well, I'll have to read the script first." And I'm just like, "Okay, I'm just telling you, it's pretty darn good."
Yeah.
Julie. And it really was. It's like 2 days later, she's like, "Yes, I'm in."
Right.
And which was just, I was so happy. I don't know what you thought when you heard that.
It took a load off just to think, okay, we've got somebody who knows camera acting, film acting, has experience. As I joked with her, because she would say, "Well, we don't really have any name talent in the sense that
Right.
because that's what a lot of independents will try to throw somebody with a big name in there that shows up for 1 minute on screen and they put them on the cover."
So, Julie, as you're listening to this, you are our name talent.
Yes, that's what I kept telling her. She would say, "We don't have any name talent." I say, "Why'd we bring you in?" Yes. So that was sort of the joke with her. But I mean,
I'm the eye candy. She's the name. Yeah.
Yes. Right. Well, I'll tell you right there. It's both lead characters have a lot weighing on them, having lost their son, and what that does to a relationship, and relationship as well as just individuals, right? And so both you guys brought that heaviness to the drama aspect of the film.
Do you remember when maybe we're getting ahead, but I'll just our first read through, Julie and I's first read through.
Oh yeah.
In the barn.
Yep, in the barn out in Westfield.
Way out on a horse ranch in a barn, literally. And it was I mean, just for me, it was really magical. And it was such the scenes that we read together. They're so emotional anyway, and we didn't. Of course, Julie and I we hadn't seen each other for years. I mean, personally, we kept in touch, and I know you hadn't. It was just kind of a little reunion there, but. Yeah, we read those scenes, and I mean, we're just all crying.
Yeah,
and it was because the script was so great. I mean, it really was, but it's just finding that emotion that I think we both had in us, and finding that chemistry that we didn't realize that we had.
Yeah, I remember sitting at that table. Because we had done a read through with some cast, but mainly just some college students, just to kind of go through it.
Right.
I'm trying to remember who we had read at the read through the Susanna part. I
think it's just it was a student of what.
It may have been Jillian Lentz who did it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jillian.
Yeah.
So it was not. It was definitely not the person who was going to play it because she's only in her 20s. But yeah, we sat there and. You guys are reading it, and I could hear it in both your voices, this real pain. It was believable, right? And that's, you watch films and it's not believable, right? But you guys were just practicing it and trying to find, that tone and that interplay. And we read through it, and I think maybe we read a couple scenes twice, but for the most part, we read each scene once, and I was like, that's it. Let's not mess this up any. I think was kind of my feeling. You guys have that rawness already, and that's what it's supposed to be. And so, that was a very magical moment for me. I think I may have said, I think we are really making a film. It's something of that sort. It was very real at that point.
Yeah.
The cool thing about having Julia do the part 2 was she said yes. And we told her when we were shooting, and maybe I don't know which part was yes when we were shooting, how it worked, but we had the date set, and she said, "Well, here's the deal: we do a family vacation in Michigan every July, but we fly to Indianapolis and drive up to Michigan with her cousin and their family." And she's like, "And we're doing that over the first week when you're shooting is our family vacation," and so the timing worked out so that. She flew in, and we did the read through. Right. So like on the 7th or 8th of July, a couple days before we started shooting.
Yep.
We started shooting, and then their family all came back, and Julia stayed. We put her up at a hotel where she stayed for the final 5 days of production, basically. And so we shot all her scenes in the back half of the 2 weeks that we were shooting, such that she footed the bill for coming here, right? We paid to put her up, but it was just one of those things where it was kind of that miracle of timing.
Yeah, absolutely.
That we had already picked those dates.
Serendipity.
It's a serendipity. Yes, she was already going to be in the state, which solved a ton of problems.
Yeah,
it created a new problem because we'd already cast Tyler, the character for Tyler, the young man who would kind of become your friend and who you were going to help. But we'd already cast that, and I said these are the 2 weeks for shooting. and at the time he was fine. He's a talented young man, and he got into the American Songbook camp that they do at the Palladium or the Center for the Performing Arts with
That's right.
Michael Feinstein, and so he sent me a text saying, "Hey, I got in the camp, and so I won't be available except for the second week of when you're filming. I hope that works out." Well, we'd already secured Julia, which fortunately for timing, and since I was able to respond, it's not going to work out. If something changes, I'll let you know, but I appreciate that you're letting me know because we're probably we're going to have to find somebody else.
Yeah.
And so that was the new panic, to find somebody else to play this very pivotal role of a young man. So we need somebody who's in their 18 to 20-year-old that can play somebody who's had a drug past and, has been kind of living on the streets in some sense, in and out of homes and incarceration. And so that was one of those moments where you're like, oh, we are screwed. How are we going to solve this problem? So we started getting some other names. I would reach out to people, at the other agencies, just saying, "Hey, do you have a young man who needs some, screen credit and time?" And didn't really have much luck nailing anybody down that way. I was kind of surprised because I remember as a kid at 18 years old, if I had heard they were doing a feature film, I mean, I would have paid to do it.
Oh yeah, yeah, so, I get that. Yeah.
So I couldn't find anybody that wanted to come audition. We did eventually find a couple different people to come and read with you, and so this is how I recollect it. J.C. Crawford Williams, who was the wife of John Williams, who was our DP.
Yep.
Either she said to John and had John relay it, or she sent a note to me or something. But she said, have you thought about Tommy Rieger? And I'm like, Tommy Rieger? Well, he was in my speech class at AU. And it's about the most straight-laced high school. He was a high school taking a class in advance, so very good student, taking some pre-college classes or whatever. And I'm like, this kid is very straight-laced. Yeah. I don't know, but I was like, we need somebody, so come
read. Let him read. Yeah.
Right. And we had him come in and read, and I don't know what were your thoughts at that point.
I always go back chemistry. I mean, just had a good feeling about him. I didn't know him. I didn't know his background or anything, and just caught a little bit. I said, "Well, have you ever done any acting and everything?" "Well, I was in a homeschool musical,
Sound of Music. He was
and
Captain
I played
Von
Captain
Trapp.
Von Trapp." I'm like, so we start singing Edelweiss together, but I'm like, okay, that's a connection, but okay, you've done like one show. And it's a homeschool production of Sound of Music, which, that's I have all sorts of thoughts on that. But I'm like, okay, cool. But he reads, and he read so well.
Yeah.
If I recall, then we, that worked out. Then we read with a couple of other guys along the way, and we just kept coming back to this Thomas Rieger.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I said, Jack, here's what I really like about him. First of all, he reads well. We've got some good chemistry here. I mean, the scene that we were doing and everything else. The other thing I really loved about him was he has this. There's a certain dialect and accent around Madison County, Anderson, Daleville. They're not Southern here.
Yep.
It's not really Northern nasal. It's just kind of this interspersed and. He has that.
Yeah.
I'm just like, and I loved that. I'm just like you can't get more, and I joke about it. You can't get more Anderson than that. And he just he nailed it on that. So,
yeah, it was one of those things where we, in auditioning, there were a lot of good auditions. I don't know if there was any great auditions, but there was a realism about him.
Yes.
That didn't quite meet on some of the other guys we were talking to, and one of the things that stood out to me was that there's a scene where your character drives away, right? Because originally he said, "Well, you're too chicken shit scared or something to do to do anything," and then as you drive away, I can't remember what the line originally was. Right, but he improvised in the in that, right? Where he did kind of the callback, right? And so, bye chicken shit.
And
right?
I'm driving away laughing because I hear him say that. I'm just like, that's not in the script. That's perfect. He just nailed that.
I was like, that's in there.
Yeah.
That was just, so I was like, okay, he gets this character.
Yeah.
And
it's so opposite. When you talk to him, it's just like, where did you find that character? He's like, he's just opposite of me. I just played opposite. I'm like, well, you nail it, man. So
because he is a straight-laced kid. Goes to, I don't know if we should say Cedarville or not, right?
No,
I said when they see this film, he may get kicked out. The film is faith-based in a sense. It's not a Christian film. It's a film about faith and redemption and forgiveness and so forth. But there is some language in it that because I wanted to achieve some realism and really it's his character that is, it's not like every other character is saying that. That's one of the annoying things about a lot of films, even Hollywood films, right, where every character talks the same. Right. No, this guy, he talks different. He is, and well, that was the effort. And anyway, so Thomas, was willing to jump in, because he was one I needed to be around on call basically for the 15 days. I couldn't work around. If I was going to work around Julia's schedule, of course you were there every day, which we had talked about up front, but I needed Thomas there probably 75% of the days, and I couldn't. When you're scheduling a film, you have to choose where can I get the location, when can I get it, what other actors need, and so we had to work around all of Julia's stuff towards the end. So I needed Thomas to show up at a variety of places, and so that was one of those things where I literally when our first actor called or texted me and said, I'm going to do this other thing, can we work around it? I didn't panic. But I was like, wow, this could be a challenge now.
Right.
But I actually took my real estate experience in this moment, because so often we would offer on a house my clients liked. This is my previous career as a realtor, which is my wife's career now. But and we wouldn't get the deal. We wouldn't get the house, and they were like, oh, that was the house we loved. That was the one. And I could just I found it always to be the case, and I would say to my clients, don't worry. This may have seemed like the right house, but it wasn't.
Right.
A better house is going to come up. And I would 9 times out of 10 or 10 times out of 10, it did. The better house came up. And this is not a knock against our first actor, but I told myself the right actor is going to come up. We're going to find him. This is a blessing, not a curse. And I feel like it really did work out that way. So I was really, that was huge. The other casting, I kind of just started working through who I knew. Anya Burke played Missy, which is a smaller part, but I really wrote that around her. I'd seen her do some other stuff.
She's amazing.
And very talented actress, now cruising the world with, I don't know which company, but doing Grease on a cruise ship.
She is Sandy on Grease.
Sandy. So very talented. Keep that name in mind. She's going to pop up again. I'm confident. And so just hit up certain friends and cast myself as Dave, the mechanic, which was a small enough part that I could have fun doing something, grow out my beard, and also not have to stress. I got it done shot that scene the second day. I could shave the beard off and get serious. The best part about that is my parents came and saw the premiere at Heartland, and I think it was the next day I was on the phone with them, and my mom goes, well, we saw your name in the credits, but what part were you? And I thought, victory. I said, I played a part, Dave. I was Dave the mechanic. And they didn't recognize me.
Your own mother didn't.
My own mother did not recognize the scraggly guy on screen, which was victory. And then I said it to one of my colleagues later. I recounted that my mom didn't recognize me. And he goes, you were in the film?
That's fantastic.
So nobody recognized me, which felt good to think that, okay, they weren't just watching the film thinking, there's my son, right? So so that was nice. Any other casting thoughts before I move on?
The father.
The father,
Ricky's dad.
Yeah.
So, and as I first read the script and everything else, I'm envisioning this whole backstory for the which, when you're putting together a character and thinking about a character as an actor, you're just like, well, what's the backstory here? Even though it's not written, I've got to bring some emotion to it. And, there's a relationship with the father here that we don't know, and there's probably more to it. Might even be another film, and I don't know. That's funny. But I had envisioned who that character was in Ricky's life, just the overbearing, pushing father who probably was trying to live out his own dreams through Ricky, who was tried to make it in music himself or something like that and didn't quite get there, so thrust it all up on him, and the stress and the pressure just broke and all of that good stuff. So, I had someone in mind for that. The first time I read it, I'm just like, wouldn't it be cool? And so I made a couple of phone calls to some friends, and I was just, who I had in mind was really one of my just pivotal heroes, absolute heroes, and who I got to be friends with over the years, was Russ Taff. And, I just kept thinking, man, it would be really great. And so after making a couple of other phone calls, and finally we got through to Russ, and I'm like, well, I'm not the director here, I'm just the actor, but talk to Jack.
Yeah.
And so then that phone call was made. So
yeah, and he was super nice because I reached out to him, and
those who don't know, Russ Taff was 80s and 90s contemporary Christian music and rock. He is the voice. The 70s, the Imperials and everything. He is just an amazing singer, an amazing person, has lived a pretty hard life in a lot of ways, and that was also I knew him enough to know he's lived that character too. So anyway, go on.
Yeah. So I you guys, I think Benji got the number, or you gave me the number. I can't remember how I texted him and then set up a phone call with him, and we had the conversation, and again, we're an independent film with no money, but I was, we're willing to do what we could to make something work, and he he expressed interest. He's like, I'll do it. And we were kind of looking at, okay, how can we shoot this over, I think 2 or 3 days with him. And of course I needed to overlap a couple with Julia, right? So that was all this scheduling that we were trying to figure out. And he said yes, right? So it was really exciting that he was willing to do it. Unfortunately, I think it was about a week later, I got a text from him saying, he just felt like he was too overwhelmed with stuff to do the part. And it was a relief in some ways, because one of the pressures I felt was trying to be a people pleaser, and I didn't want to let somebody down, and somebody of that magnitude. Not that he carried an ego particularly, but just you don't want
no ego. But stature wise,
you don't want to mess up.
Yeah, you just don't want to screw it up with Russ.
So it took a pressure off me in one part, and it also, again, we're like, okay, back to the drawing board. I think we reminisced the other day. How it would have been cool if he had been in it, because that would have been part of our name value. Yeah, that we could have used his name value to draw some attention. Certain people watching it. It was funny. I was visiting my daughter earlier this week, and she had on her Spotify, which plays on her TV, and she has a variety of songs that pop up. Which oddly enough, she's really into Stryper right now.
Go figure.
Which which cracked me up, but then one of the songs pops up, and it's the Imperials.
No way.
And I said that she had no clue, right? She's 25 years old, doesn't know who the Imperials are.
Right.
And I'm like, no, that's the Imperials. That's Russ Taff right there. And I said, we were this close.
We were that close.
But anyway, so yeah, he is obviously a legend in Christian music and just that community. Roland stepped in.
Roland Van Horn came. He's an old friend of mine. We've done a lot of theater together, and he's been a director. He's directed me, and I've known Roland for a long time. And the hard part was always just finding someone who could play the father, who's old enough.
Right.
Again, I'm 50 years old or so at the time, and it was just like, okay, well, let's see, Rollins this old, and just like, I mean, well, he would have been 19 if they would,
Right.
all of that. So you're doing the math and everything. I was like, this works out. And I knew him well enough that we had some good chemistry there, and he read, and he read incredibly well.
Yeah, I
So,
thought there was
yeah.
a lot of nice stuff there. Good, because you guys knew each other. I think that really helped
Yeah.
piece that together too. And so, yeah, that was, I mean, he was very generous with his time also.
Yeah.
That's the thing with everybody just giving when you're doing something of this scope. It's not like a short
Right.
film where you've got 2 days and you're going to shoot in 2 days and be done. And so he was willing to shoot multiple times joining us, and then we had to reshoot some stuff, and he came back a couple times. And so, yeah, so it was, he filled in magnificently. I really appreciated his work. Thank you for joining us for this episode of This Train, the podcast, where we talk about all things related to the making of the movie This Train. Join us again for our next episode, and until then, take care.